Good evening, everybody. This is here, so I feel compelled to say.
Yeah, make it official.
Welcome to the Abolition Hall Steering Committee meeting. This is Monday, March 3rd. We're beginning just a few minutes after 7 p.m. and I'm excited that we're here. It's been a while. The last meeting we had was in September, so I think that we can, if the committee can go around and introduce themselves, just because we're having a bit of a restart. So my name is Laura Boyle Nestor. I feel like I can't see everybody here. And I'm chair of the steering committee. I live in Whitemarsh Township and excited to be part of this. I don't care which, you want to go ahead?
Good evening. My name is Edmund Shin. I am a resident of Whitemarsh Township. I am an attorney and I'm involved with Highlands Historical Society, and I've participated in several open space transactions in the township. I look forward to assisting with this.
Hi, my name is Darren Sudman. I also live in Whitemarsh Township, have 2 kids that went through the district. I work right now with nonprofits and corporations doing corporate social responsibility, and I'm excited to be a part of this project.
I want to go to the end. Hi, I'm Deb Lukens. I am the retired district justice here in Whitemarsh Township, and I have been in Whitemarsh since 1957. So I have a vested interest. My kids have grown up here. We've all gone to Colonial, so I love it.
My name's Dana Dorsey. I live in Whitemarsh Township, and I have 2 boys going through the Colonial School District now. I'm the executive director at the Highlands. I've worked with Ed on open space projects as well at the Highlands.
And we have J.C. Toll, who's our liaison from the Board of Supervisors. Craig McNally is our township manager, and we also have Tom Blomstrom joining us from Park and Rec. And I think we have 1 member from the public.
Allison Boyle was here.
Excellent, thank you. The approval of minutes, if everybody on the committee has had a chance to review and agree.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Excellent, approved. So we've had a lot of changes happening, a lot going on, and I think just starting from the beginning is where we need to be. And if Craig, you or JC can begin with a little bit of where we are, talking about the status termination agreement, maybe.
I'm wondering if it would be helpful for me to read the statement that I read at the Board of Supervisors meeting to begin, because I think that sums it up pretty well, and we can start from there. In 2021, the township entered into an agreement with the Whitemarsh Arts Center that protected the home of historic Abolition Hall. It was a creative approach made possible by a generous donation from the Carabots Foundation and preserved a very important piece of history. The plan was for a portion of the property to become the new home for the Whitemarsh Arts Center. The Arts Center has been a mainstay of Whitemarsh for 60 years. After the township and the Arts Center took possession of the property, the Arts Center worked on a plan for its use that would allow it to expand programming that enriches the community, including offering STEM classes for children. In recent discussions with the township about the status of the project, the Arts Center, the township, and the Carabots Foundation agreed that it would be best for the Arts Center to cease plans to move onto the property for such expanded offerings and to remain focused on providing art classes primarily for adults. The Art Center will continue to serve the community from its home in Cedar Grove Park, and the township will continue to provide annual funding to the Art Center. This change does not impact the township's commitment to preserving the property while making it a home for programs and activities that benefit the community. As part of that commitment, the township and the Carabots Foundation will look for a new partner that can offer the educational, technical, and/or creative programming and exposure that can inspire local underserved and disadvantaged youth in furtherance of the mission of the Carabots Foundation. The township also plans to continue engagement with the community about future uses and preservation of the property. And this is just an additional paragraph As I believe many of you know, preserving Abolition Hall in the course and tract was a significant accomplishment. We could not have done it without the Karabots Foundation, and we thank them. The Foundation, the Art Center, and the Township have spent the better part of the last 2 months working on the agreement that I just referenced. It was important for us to get that right, and we believe we have. For anyone wondering why meetings were postponed and things were quiet, it was because we were working on that agreement. Now we have a new path forward and work that begins at this meeting. Thank you.
Perfect. Are there any board questions? Comments? Any questions from the public? Okay.
Nothing online either.
All right, so let's move to the property and maintenance update. Because while this was going on, there was also maintaining the property, the buildings, was in progress as well at the same time.
Yeah, so the township was still looking at maintaining both the properties. 14 Marple Lane is being rented, so we don't do much over there. The renter does a lot of the work over there. They pay on time every month, a very good renter. If you're looking for one, it's one of the better ones. But just to go through some of just the routine maintenance that has been going on since taking over. For the main house and Abolition Hall, 2 heaters were serviced and repaired. We had a vehicle go through the fence along Butler Pike that Public Works had to get rid of the fence, repair the fence, and so forth. So he did a lot of clearing over there. Cleaned the gutters twice a year. We cut back all the trees and the shrubs around the houses. We did more fence repairs along Butler Pike. Fire Marshal did his inspections for smoke detectors, fire extinguishers, and make sure it was safe. We removed the in-ground pool. That was a big liability, so that was removed, filled in, and now there's actually grass on it. Did the fall cleanup, removed the leaves. We had a landscaper come in, and he was doing the walking pass, we'll call it, around the fields. I had the township arborist recently went out there, did a tree evaluation for the whole site. I can get into that a little bit. And then over at the one Germantown Pike, we had to replace a new heater. Had that done in November. We had to clean up, Pico cut down a tree along Butler Pike that was interfering with the wires. Cleaned that up. We had some damages to the windows on that property that we fixed, and we put some plastic over the windows to protect it even more from the elements getting in. We did the gutters there too, cut back the bushes and trees. Fire Marshal did his inspection over there, more cleanup with the trees. And then the 3 meadows, I think the last time we were here, we were able to go out and did the front meadow, I'll call it, on Butler Pike. And then we were going to wait for the winter to come and do the other 2 in the back. That has been completed as well, so everything is cut down in those 3 areas. We replaced the cattle gate on Butler Pike for ingress and egress onto Butler Pike instead of going through the stone pillars in the front. So we've been keeping up. I have the facilities guy go down there 2 to 3 times a week just to check on the heat and the water, make sure there's no rodents got in there or any broken glass or anything like that. So, he has a presence down there 2 to 3 times a week. So we are, keeping an eye on it. we have some ideas for what we would like to do in 2025. Some of the ideas would like remove that deck in the back. It's in terrible condition. I'd like to remove it and, at this point, just replace it as it is now. I don't know what the future is for that space.
You're talking about the deck off of Abolition Hall.
Off of Abolition Hall, the back, yeah.
Just wanted to clarify that.
It's, it's
And the stairs.
it's in bad shape, and we've closed it off, with a barricade, but, now, we thought we were gonna have more of a presence down there in the past, but we think we should be installing cameras down there and have them connected to the police department on both the buildings, so at least we have some presence on the outside that if someone's pulling up or walking around there, we can at least see. We'll talk about the arborist report. I have the report. I have to review it more with the arborist. I'd like to bring him in at the next meeting and let him go through his whole report with this group, if everyone's agreeable to that. But we'll have preliminary look at that report. We'll have a lot of work to be done down there, and I think it's going to have to be outsourced as far as removing and some maintenance of the trees and the shrubs around the entire site. With the wall, when you come into Abolition Hall, through the two pillars, there's a wall between where Abolition Hall and the barn is and I'll say the fields. There's a stone wall there that needs to be repaired. And just maybe some drainage in the front so we can have more parking in there, put some stone in there, get the water out of that area and push it to the back. Bamboo, in the arborist report, he does point out there's bamboo near the back patio of Abolition Hall. We have a company coming in to treat some of the bamboo throughout other open space areas. We would love to add this area to that contract. And it would be, cutting it down and treating the roots so it doesn't spread anymore. So we would like to do that. And then there are just some ideas. I know this group's going to have a lot of ideas, so it's just some of the things that we came up with as a staff. So, but we are down there. We're looking at it. We're keeping track of things down there. So,
Do we have lights down there, motion lights outside?
I don't know if there are motion lights, but there's lights down there.
On timers?
Timers, yes. Mm-hmm.
Craig, thank you. I think it would be great to hear from the arborist to get understanding at the next meeting.
Okay.
I also think that my prerogative is to not wait on the bamboo, to lump it in with what's happening at the other open space parcels, because I think that's something that's been treated early is treated best.
That would be great. I mean, we have the company coming out, so.
Is that Red Tail?
I'm sorry?
Who is it that does it?
I don't know the name of it.
Bamboo guys.
Bamboo guys, yeah.
I'm not sure of the company, but he's ready to go, we'll just say, and to do some of the other areas that we have bamboo in the area. So.
Has John been, so we're not doing things kind of like haphazardly. Is there a priority list in his report? Like if there's something
There is, and
beyond,
he'll get
in
into
addition
that
to the
priority.
bamboo?
I'll say that 90% of the work has to be done, or doesn't have to be done, should be done within a year, is what he's saying.
Due to safety?
Safety.
Okay.
And just the property itself, yes. So what he looked at a lot of the perimeter, down Butler Pike and all the perimeter areas of the property, so, and around the houses. So anything that he saw that was, in his opinion, a hazard, he's marked. So it is marked down there at the site. So I'm going to meet him down there at some point. He has offered for the group to go down and meet with him if you want a, firsthand inspection of it. But he's also know that he's going to be coming here at a future meeting, and hopefully the next meeting.
This is an interesting project because it's owned by the township. There's public open space in which the public is invited. The laws, as I understand it in Pennsylvania, is if land is open to the public for passive recreation, there's immunity from liability, except for conditions which are known to be hazardous. Mm-hmm. So if the arborist identifies trees in the area of a walking trail that could potentially, whether they're damaged or dead, could potentially result in hazard to someone, I would make the recommendation that the Board of Supervisors move swiftly with that work, maybe using open space funds, so that we're not in a position where we knew about it in many months past. That's just my thought on that.
Yeah, and I agree, and that's the whole point of not just targeting the bamboo, but getting from him the priority list so that those immediate dangers can be addressed promptly.
We can, if that's the recommendation, I can send the report out to everyone tonight. I can send it to you.
So based on this alone, does everybody agree to recommend to the supervisors to move promptly?
Yes, and lump
Yes.
in the bamboo that's
All of
close
it.
to the
Yes.
structures.
Absolutely.
And that's all part of his report
Okay,
anyway.
Absolutely.
So there's a lot of work out there, we'll just say.
But it only takes one accident.
Oh, correct.
Warm weather and the notoriety and all the publicity of this, we're going to get more and more people, even if we're not ready.
Yeah.
So, as Ed said, knowing we have a problem, we've got to correct it.
And there might be a situation where there's certain items on that list that you want to let out in a preliminary contract to a contractor that there's a relationship with. And then maybe if there's a bulk of the work that exceeds the bid amounts where you want to put it out for procurement through bid, I think that's a way to look at it. There might be, if a tree is clearly presenting an imminent threat to someone who might be walking by, maybe that's something that requires an urgent approach. Do you agree?
Yeah, and I think we've used red tail before, like the Victory Field area.
Yeah, Red Tail will not be doing this kind of work. This is going to have to be bid out. I mean,
Okay.
The thought was we would go down as a township with a chipper, and there is piles of wood and limbs and stuff that have been there for a while, and we would get rid of that, and then we would have to go out and probably just bid this whole thing and get it done in one swoop. If we did it, it would take us months because we just can't stop everything. So, and we don't have the power to do a lot of the tree work. So,
Mr. McNally.
yes.
Just also good to note that Red Tail does not do tree work. So that's a significant factor there.
Good to know.
At the Highlands, we've used Chiron, and they've been very responsive, very professional. We've been happy with their work.
Okay.
Great. Any other questions from the public regarding the land?
Good evening. Is this on? Can you hear me? Is this on?
I can hear you. I don't know if it's on.
But we can hear you.
Is
Yeah, you
it?
can hear me. Okay.
Is a button there, Sidell, right on top? Should be?
The green is lit.
Okay.
So, okay. Sidell Zove, Harts Ridge Road. As I think most of you know, I'm familiar with the property, and as I mentioned in the past, I walk it regularly, and when I see things that need attention, I contact Craig, and someone's out there almost immediately. Craig, as you noted, the wooden deck that's at the rear of the main house and connects to Abolition Hall, that is, there's caution tape or something there
Yeah.
blocking it off, but that definitely is a hazard. And the other hazard I'd like to point out is, as you approach the front of the main house, the Butler Pike side, the brick patio across which you walk to get to the front door is undermined significantly, and there are cavities throughout. So I would suggest that you take a look at that and probably cordon that off as well. In terms of the trees and shrubs, I wonder whether there's a role here for the Township Shade Tree Commission.
There will be
Okay. Yeah.
for a replanting.
And some of the trees are alive, but they're cloaked in English ivy.
Yes.
There's some wisteria. And I hope that I hope the intent is to save what can be saved. You know, cut the ivy, pull it out. It will eventually dry and come out of the trees, fall out of the trees. But if you have to cut it at the base, maybe even paint some Roundup on it, not spray, paint. So I hope that as many trees as possible can be saved. And then also with regard to the pruning and shrub work, there's that line of shrubs, I'm not sure what it is, privet, I don't know exactly what it is, but along Butler Pike, immediately adjacent to the Hovenden House, that's been allowed to grow way, way tall. The Wilsons used to keep that clipped, and it hasn't been clipped in years. I think to make the public aware of the fact that the township cares about this property, that it's important that those shrubs be cut back, it sends the wrong message looking at them.
I thought they did that back in September. They didn't?
No.
Okay.
They've got to be, I don't know, 20 feet tall at this point. And I think the message that it sends is the wrong message, you know, and it should be properly maintained. Thank you.
You know, that raises a good point. Is it possible that the township, would it not be maybe be prudent to temporarily close off access while we do this stuff? I mean, it's at least something to consider, that if there's dangerous conditions, it's under construction, we're trying to tackle all these things, but it takes a little bit of time. That's something that I don't think we should foreclose the idea of, that if temporarily we need to say, hey, listen, we are actively working on what we're doing over here to make this a better experience, but we have to close it for a few months so that we can get bids on tree work and fix brick conditions and repair. All it takes is one kid walking up the back steps that are unsafe, and I think that I would hope that the township residents are understanding of timing if we did have to do that, but that's certainly something that we should not take off the table.
Yeah. I would hope that the fields can remain open. That I haven't noticed any hazardous conditions as I walk through the fields. It's primarily right around the structures.
There's a lot around the Abolition Hall and one Germantown Pike. There's most of that, and then in the way back toward Marple Lane,
yes.
That problem.
Well, there's the section with the sinkholes, and they are.
Yes,
that's another hazardous condition.
But that has been highlighted.
Right.
Highlighted. What do you mean? It's roped off?
In the report.
By the report, yeah.
Is it marked at all for anyone who's walking back there to not walk in that area?
Oh, no.
It's densely vegetated. I mean, you really you can't really get easily into that area. I'm aware of it and have wandered back there at times, but not recently. It's almost impassable at this point.
Correct.
It's behind the Jehovah's Witness building, straight back behind that, where the property wraps around behind their building.
Gotcha.
Sidel, do you think that it would be beneficial if there was signage at the property that said, acknowledge that this is a work in progress and to bear with us while we do it? Do you think that would be helpful for people to know that this is something that is not just being, thrown into a stockpile of historic properties, but is actively under, the fact that all of us are volunteering to be here, the township manager and chair of the Board of Supervisors here, there's obviously great care for the property.
Yeah, I think, there is the historic marker there that the state installed and that Roy Wilson was instrumental in helping to secure. So, in conjunction with that, there should be something that says, yeah, we know that this is an important property and we're...
Please excuse our appearance.
Yes.
We're under
Temporary
construction.
inconvenience. Yeah, for sure. And maybe even a phone number. I have seen at other areas of the township, there are notices that say, questions, call the township, and there's a number, or township manager. And perhaps there should be a sign there that says, if you have concerns or questions, contact Craig McNally. Yeah, I contact Craig, a couple times a year or more when I see the broken glass and the gutters, the downspouts lying on the ground. So others might do that as well.
Can I ask you, how often are you over there?
When it was 15 degrees outside. But I would say a couple times a month.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you see other people when you're there?
Sometimes, yeah. In fact, one day there was a young person really walking briskly, and I said, "Do you walk here regularly?" And she said, "I work at the one of the businesses on Butler Pike," and she walks from wherever she gets a bus, maybe. She cuts through, instead of walking on Butler Pike where there are no sidewalks, she walks on the trails, the mown trails through the property. So yeah, I do see other people. In fact, one time I saw somebody with one of those metal detectors, and I reported.
I don't want to really break into, but as part of this whole process to do this.
Just for the sake of those that are on, do you want to come up?
Yeah, can you come up to the microphone and give us your name?
Ken Parsons.
Ken Parsons. Thank you.
I'm in the Hartford.
Ken, do you want to just come up to the mic just so others can hear you too?
Right here?
Yep.
Well, I would suggest, I hear you talk about all the process of going with outside work and all the maintenance, but just to get to the real interest and where the point you're making regarding to signage, you have to do something regarding OSHA and all of the requirements regarding construction and anything that might, even demolition work, you got to place some type of signage to note the public. You don't want to get into a liability issue regarding to not having any signage on the site, and someone should probably hurt themselves or fall into whatever might be there, it might be detrimental to someone walking in the fields. On all the contracts I work with and all the jobs I work with, there's never have been, there always has been, for expression, signage and some security issues regarding to basically the property and also was entitled for property to be safely washed over. And if you put cameras on there, you'll have another part of that process.
Yeah, I think that was a good suggestion by the staff.
Are we talking like barricading the entrance so they can't get in?
Well, obviously, whenever the active clearing
Right.
is happening, that has to happen.
Yeah.
But I think it's being mentioned to consider, I don't know, certain areas now.
The
But it
entrance
sounds
wall.
like the open space in the
There's a side
back,
of the
but there
entrance.
should be something that says, proceed with caution. I don't know that that is going to save any liability issue, but at least people are aware that there are varying terrains.
Yeah,
back
be
there.
advised that
Yep.
there, may encounter downwinds or potentially sinkhole. I think.
And who to contact.
Yep. No, that's fine.
A call number that feeds to a call service.
So we don't want to say no trespassing or nothing like that at this point. You just want to...
Notify, give them the kind of clarity that this is the area of the construction,
Okay. Yep.
Common sense
Varying
tells me they'll know what to do.
terrain.
Especially with that deck.
Well, that
Yeah.
should be blocked off.
The deck is
That's not gonna
somewhat
stop.
blocked off.
Yeah.
Kids go in there, they're going to go on it.
I think the purpose of my comment was just to say we're all eager for the property to be activated, but
for the optics to show like
We
if
don't want to
there's-
jump the
yeah.
gun and be really encouraging people to use the property if it's not ready. And so, the township, it sounds like from everything that's happened, the township's doing a lot.
Maintenance
And
and
thank you
progress.
for all the maintenance and the preventative stuff that's being done. And if, we need to kind of pump the brakes to make sure that the property is safe, I don't think that we should be adverse to considering that.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Can the maintenance from the township take the deck down? Are they,
Yes. We can take the deck down. I don't know if anyone can build one, though.
right.
But we can
get
do
it
the
down.
demolition, yeah.
I think that's
Quickly.
first.
And what happens is then
Getting it
we would
down.
just use the downstairs back entrance and then use the steps internally to go to the floors. So we can
Priority list.
have that done, yeah.
Can I say something?
Yes, please.
Yeah, Roy Wilson, we used to live there. The deck, if you take the deck down, the kitchen door, if somebody ever opened it, they'd fall.
We would barricade that from the inside.
The studio, there'd be no access to the Abolition Hall except going through the basement and going,
Right.
I'd be very careful of tearing that down.
Well, you
Make
go
a
in-
lot of preparation ahead of time for these problems. You'd have two doorways that somebody could step out of.
That
Literally
there's
fall.
nothing there.
Oh, correct, yeah. But we could barricade the doors. That's not a problem. But we could get into the basement of Abolition Hall and then up the steps, correct? And get to the, yeah, okay.
Mr. Wilson,
There'd no longer be any way to get from the house to Abolition Hall, so.
are you advocating for a remove and replace rather than just a remove? Is that sort of what you're saying? It would be,
I think you should decide what you want the deck to be.
Yeah.
Some kind of architectural design, something that accommodates,
Some more of a room.
handicap access, or just get rid of it all together. But I mean, I don't think I'd knock it down until you think through what you want to do. I mean, I think it'd be more dangerous if you knock it down.
do you have a recommendation for how it might be made safe temporarily?
I don't think it's as dangerous as it's being let out to be. I mean, you could come in with some shoring underneath, put a few more. There's a couple 4x4s there that could just be replaced. Put 6x6s up if you want. Just all the structure, all the stringers, if you want to call them that. No matter where there's anything wrong with any of those. Deck boards, you can nail a deck board down and no time at all. The staircase going up to it has some bad boards. I mean, have a carpenter look at it and see if he could get a price on just stabilizing it for, say, a year or two until you decide what to do. I mean, to my mind, it's no good the way it is because it's going to have to be handicap access. But to just rip it down while you're thinking about it, that seems a little difficult to me because there was no way to get from the house to the studio. You're going to be going in the back, I don't know why you're not going up in the back. And it's pretty convoluted. I'm not saying not to do it, but I don't know if that's the best suggestion.
What about a
What is
gate?
the safest?
Maybe a gate? Maybe like a wooden gate with a lock on it? If
So you
someone,
have a barricade at the bottom of it. Yeah, I'd put a piece of plywood on it and just say, not open to the public. And I don't think it's dangerous to walk from the main house into the second floor of Abolition Hall the way it is now. I live there, I didn't consider it dangerous. Getting a whole bunch of people on it at one time, that could be dangerous. So I mean, I would just not let people go up on it anymore, but
I think it's a fair
I think an
point.
architect would be the best one to decide how to make that deck. Maybe not a design that costs $1 million, but a deck that could be put in for over 40 or 50,000 that would be commensurate with all you need and maybe be good for 5 years, and then you get something really grandiose later when you have it thought out. The privet along Butler Pike next to the Hobbit House, that real tall thing, we used to cut it down all the time, but it is a privet hedge. I wouldn't remove it. If you cut it down to about 6 feet, it's a great barricade for all the traffic looking into the side of
Right, yeah.
Hobbit House, so I certainly wouldn't rip it out. There are a few trees in there which are just crappy things, but they can be easily. I will say that to take all that down, you're going to have tractor trailer loads there's a lot of privet there.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
For him. There's a bunch of trees have paint, purple paint. Is that the arborist doing that?
Yes.
Does that mean they're cutting it down or saving?
I believe that would be a removals.
We go out there, my wife and I, pick up all the trash every couple of weeks along the road. And I cut down a lot of trees in the back that fell down and nobody dealt with. So I've been walking around a lot, and I think it'd be very easy to get a nice walking path around those 3 fields. It doesn't. We used it for years. It's not any little ruts there really from the plows from the farmer. That can be filled in really easy. There's no sinkholes on any of that walkways. It's a pleasant walk to have it around. It's just not very well maintained right now, but it wouldn't take very much.
Thank you.
I think the committee and the supervisors need to also, when we consider the deck, consider what the use of the buildings are going to be over the next 3 months, 6 months, year, so that we can make these kinds of decisions.
Agree.
Because we might find out that, improvements are being made and it's going to be shut down anyways, so there's no need for a deck. So
Right.
we have to think about that.
Yeah.
You may need to have an egress, point of egress and egress regardless. You have something there for exit and egress. The code usually requires that, particularly in demolition work or retrofit.
Okay. So what I hear is we need to promptly determine the deck.
Yep.
And how it's going to, because I don't feel like there's closure. I mean,
You
for
think we can get Jack
the
out there to
maintenance.
look at it?
Yes, you guys are going to look at,
We'll have someone look at it. Yeah. In my opinion, the deck has to go. And we can build something that, I guess I forgot that you couldn't get from Abolition Hall to the main house then, if that deck is, that's the only, I thought going up the steps, you were in the kitchen area, but you're not. You have to go out and then in.
right. I mean, you can, but like Mr. Wilson said, you have to go around, out the front and around.
Oh, no, yeah, I know that.
Yeah.
So, as suggested, let's get somebody to determine how unstable it is. Can we throw up some temporary fixes to make it a little safe and barricade it so nobody can get up? And we're not talking a lot of money here. That'll buy us time.
A little time,
I like
because
that.
to Darren's point, like we're looking at bigger project, or, there's more coming down the
Yeah.
road. We just don't know what that looks like
Yeah.
yet. So you don't want to put a lot of time and money into something
Right.
that you are going to.
That was the idea of throwing it up as like
A temporary safe.
deck,
Yeah.
so that you could still access it. It just may not be what we want in the future, but
Right.
to have something there that everyone feels safe about using.
And if I could just add, it need not be as large as it is now.
Correct.
It could be shrunk significantly to allow that access from one building to the other.
Correct, yeah. Again, I forgot that there was no access to the correct, yeah. It would have to be to code, yes.
Cutting the size up to the proper code requirements.
And to that end, we're going to get down to the public engagement process, and that kind of all wraps in regarding all of this, because we don't know what all of this is going to be. So we don't know what getting the dangerous trees and anything else that's immediate off is great and a wonderful priority, but we don't want to start doing major things until we know what we're going to do and what we want it to be. So, and we want to hear from the public.
I'm sorry. I'll just emphasize, at this point, we have no idea what we want it to be. So I don't want anyone to think that we have an idea.
Yep.
And
Nope.
this deck removal is part of the idea.
Nope.
Looking at safety
We're like
right now.
ground zero, trying to protect everybody, and together we'll figure out what it's going to be.
Yeah, this is the same as removing the in-ground pool that I said, I'll go check out Abolition Hall, what it's all about, and then I find an in-ground pool. What is this?
Very unsafe.
I'm like, get that out of here.
Very unsafe.
But it was just for safety and liability issues, yeah.
So let's go on to the, yes.
I don't know when the moment I should speak is. Now, okay. Well, I probably have the sour note here. My name is John Grant. I live not far away here. And I guess I'm the radical in the room here, you know, because you say it's not complete. It seems like a fait accompli to me. Like, why? My question is, I don't know if I can get an answer from anybody. Why 3 historians were rejected for this committee, for instance? Why is that?
We
In other
didn't
words,
have
it sounds
anything
like
to
a
do with
decision
that.
was made somewhere along. I was told by a historian, he's written 25 books, that he was rejected and 2 other historians were rejected for this committee. Maybe he's a liar, I don't know, you know?
We
Why?
have
You
no
know,
knowledge of
does
that.
anybody have any
So
remark about
I am
that?
not aware of anybody being, I'm not familiar with
But
what
why
you're
would a
talking
man
about.
say that?
You mean
I
somebody
can't speak to it.
applied
I don't
and we were
understand.
picked instead?
I don't know. I just sat and talked to him and he told me that.
You know,
But here
again,
we are now.
Okay, right, I know.
So we're present-
Well, that's what I mean, it sounds like a fait accompli, it's not a blank slate, it's you've made your decision that history is not important here.
Oh, no, we just need it safe.
Book now.
We
you
just
know?
need it safe, and then we're all, public and us and the supervisors.
Liability concerns,
are
I
gonna
have
use
bamboo
this property.
myself, it's, we gotta get rid of that. I
Right,
know.
and then we're all going to figure out with Karabat's
Okay.
idea
For
of
one,
what this is for.
the sign out front, the historical marker, will not be removed, am I correct? Will there be a big sign that says this is the Karabat Foundation, or what? Well, how will the thing be
One
identified?
second. I just want to go back to your previous comment.
Okay, good.
Dana Dorsey is the executive director of the Highlands Historical Society.
And, yeah,
And her life is interpreting the history of that property.
and what
So-
does that mean? I don't know what that means.
Well,
Preserving
your
history, not-
I mean,
critique.
in my
Oh,
house,
oh,
I look at a print of John Brown kissing a black baby. I look at that every morning as I drink coffee, you know? This place had a key role. A lot of courage went into what they did there. And we're in an echo moment right now in history, and that should not be thrown out.
Hold on.
Nobody
You didn't let
cares.
me finish.
Well, please.
Right? So Dana has this historical background,
Okay.
right?
Fine.
And Darren's work is with social justice of 501c3
But that
organizations.
doesn't answer my question, sir.
Well, your question presumes
I'm
that
talking
there
about
was something
Abolition
untoward
Hall, not
about the
Highlands
appointment
or-
of the committee members. And what I'm telling you is there's a well-rounded committee of people with historical, social, legal, real estate.
Well, I don't
This
agree
isn't-
with you.
Okay.
Okay, so but
Okay,
moving
I
forward, what
I told you,
is,
I'm the radical here.
so
I'm
here's
sour
the
nose.
committee now, but what is your concern at the
Well,
present?
my concern is, let me tell you a story, if you have a moment. My wife was an intern at Norristown High School. When George Bush Sr. was president, he came to speak. My wife's a bit of a subversive art teacher at the time. So they wanted a book behind the president when he spoke, and said, okay, the art department, they did, made a book, and my wife, being a subversive person, said, what topic would they least want to have on that book? She put history. First thing the next morning, the White House advance man came in and told him, change that and put math, STEM, basically, stuff. You know, governments don't like history because it's dangerous, especially these days. I mean, this is where DEI was born, you know, and I don't know, I get emotional about it. And I've made my peace, and I don't know it's going anywhere. But I just wanted to say this. It's a disappointment, because I think that's an important place. Now, you can call it the Karabat Center, but will it have discussions about what the hell that place
Yes.
was in the beginning?
Yes.
So you're saying yes?
Yes.
Okay. Yes. That's good. That's good.
I think
Okay,
we've all
that's a
been
good
clear from
answer.
the beginning that our intention is to preserve history there. That
Well, that's not what
that's
I
why
see.
we want to be on the board to
Huh?
help facilitate that preserving history. so that everyone knows exactly what it is.
Well, you must
We
have
haven't
missed,
done
you must have
anything
missed our previous meetings where we talked about getting people of color with historical background to help contribute to what we're trying to do interpreting the property.
But what are they going to say, you know?
So the good thing is, we're at a point right now, and we're very thankful, John, for you coming tonight.
Oh, I'm sure you'll have this.
I really mean that sincerely. We are all here tonight to talk about Abolition Hall and the preservation and moving forward. So we just,
I mean, it's a place that had a lot of edge.
so
It was not, I
again,
mean, they threatened to bomb or blow up or burn down the Quaker meeting, so they built that place. Frederick Douglass spoke there. And of course, Donald Trump said Frederick Douglass is a wonderful guy. He thought he was still alive. You know, this is a radical place, and you can't turn it into a corporate center, you know?
that will not happen.
Okay, good. I just made my piece.
Thank you.
Thank you
So
very much.
appreciate it. Thank you.
Listening to me.
Thank you. Craig, can we move on for the financial update? Because I think that's relevant. Or, excuse me, Ms. Roy, did you want to say a few words?
Couldn't hear. I have a head cold, I guess I can't hear.
Okay. But I think it would be helpful to just talk about that and then segue right into Marple Lane, and then we can get into the public engagement part.
As far as the financials, I'm not sure exactly. I have, the general fund spent $13,785.95 in 2024 to maintain. Most of that there was $8,000 for the heater and $5,000 for the pool removal. So the rest were locks and handles and stuff like that. So open space paid $4,764.32 in 2024. That's basically for the grounds, have the third-party people come in there and cutting the grounds. We have a budget of 2025 for $30,000 for the general fund, and with the termination and lease agreement, the legal line item got a hit of $31,662.07. That was part of the agreement. We paid back the Whitemarsh Art Center for some of their architectural, or all their architectural plans and their environmental updates and asbestos reports and anything that we would need or require if they didn't do it. So that was all the agreement, so that's $31,662. So.
And it was, can you say that again? How much was the budget for? Was it 30?
30,000.
That's what I said. Okay, so we're already past that.
Craig, is it the intention that if the Marple Lane house is sold, that the general fund will get reimbursed for the expenses of this?
Correct, right.
And that's why Marple Lane is on the agenda. Nice segue.
Can I ask a quick question? What is the 14 Marple place?
That's what we're going to talk about right now, John. So, yep.
A house.
Maybe explain it.
Yep.
Yep. So 14 Marple Lane is a home. This is the current property. This tooth, we'll say, over here is where 14 Marple Lane is. It is all encompassed in the site itself, including one Germantown Pike, Abolition Hall, and then the Corson, I guess it's a Corson tract, or their fields, we'll say. The idea when purchasing this property was that we would subdivide off. It's a 0.47 of an acre. There's a house and a separate garage on there. Like I said, there is a renter in there now. So we would have to get an appraisal of this property and then go out to bid for the highest bidder to purchase this land. So it's about a half an acre piece of land with a small cottage and a detached garage.
Is it contingent with the Abolition Hall property?
Correct, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep, it's all one piece right now, so we're just, and it's right, if you can.
Subdivide.
Yeah, sorry, can't really see it, but right there is where we would subdivide it. This is Marple Lane that comes off of Germantown Pike down here in this area. So if you go down there, you'll see this property. It's 14 Marple Lane. We would subdivide it at that port, keep the rest of it, and sell that off. Those proceeds, as you were saying, Mr. Shin, we would put that back in the general fund to recoup some of the, and use that funds for this property as well. So.
For more for the building, so that the
Correct.
land is
Open
able to be
space.
maintained through the open space fund.
Yes.
Do you have a timeline in mind for when you want to subdivide and market that?
If you guys want to make the recommendation to subdivide this would go to the Board of Supervisors next Thursday for their recommendation. Then we would look at this plan. We'd have to go to the Planning Commission. We would be, if we put an application to the Planning Commission in March after the 13th for the board, we would be on the May Planning Commission meeting. If it goes through in May, we could be back at the board in June for a recommendation to.
Does the current tenant have a lease, or are they month to month?
It's month to month. So my thought was, if there's movement on this now, I would let them know. I know, I've been told, I'm not talked to the gentleman, that they have interest in this. It will have to go out to bid, and we do have to sell it to the highest bidder.
Okay.
How much do they pay in
That's
rent?
the law.
$990 a month.
And Craig, if this went the fastest it could, how far out would it be sold?
We need to get an appraisal on this property. I have a proposal for $750 from Indian Valley Appraisals to come in, do a residential appraisal for it. We could do that simultaneously with the idea that this is going to be subdivided at a half acre. They could work together on that. It would be recorded in June, and we could sell it by,
July.
theoretically, July, September, somewhere in that range.
So that would give the current tenant ample time to find alternative residents if that was needed.
that doesn't come through.
All right.
I'd like to make a motion to recommend to the Board of Supervisors that that process be initiated as soon as possible, as described.
I second it.
Does anybody have any questions? The board, before we make that vote public? Yes, please come up. Can you come up to the mic just so we can hear you? No problem.
I'm sorry. I'm Diane Boyle. I live in Plymouth. That parcel you're talking about, is there anything historic about it at all?
Great question.
Is it just like a...
It's a split-level 1950s house that is really...
No, I think it's a cottage.
No?
No?
Mr. Wilson?
It's the
I could have sworn it was
Craig, what's the address?
1950s.
Oh, it's right
14 Marple Lane.
And that's really a cottage house, it's nothing.
14 Marple Lane, the front of it is an old tenant house, it's stone, probably goes back to the 1800s or something, but they were common, small little tenant houses. Believe me, it has very little value. But in any case, the front part, which is what you see when you're on Marple Lane, if you ever drive by it, two rooms downstairs, 2 rooms upstairs, is a very tiny little stone house. Later on, probably middle 1800s, a German siding addition was added to the back with a really funky, disastrous roof line, which makes no sense at all, which sticks out this way. And now what you have is a front stone part, and all the utilities are in the back. At some point when the utilities, when plumbing came in, all that was made into a kitchen and bathroom in the back. But historical-wise, we lived there for a long time. I've never seen any old building has some history to it. And the big problem with that house, that really needs, in my mind, that's a lane with all private houses. And when we lived there, that was the only rental house on the whole lane. It really needs to be a private house. It's in keeping with the rest of the lane. All the other landowners there keep up their houses. This house has never been kept up because we can never afford it.
Well, why was it built? Anybody know any of the history about it? Any background on it?
Why was it built?
Yeah.
Tenant house.
If
It
it's
was a
from
tenant.
Who was the original tenant? Like, we don't know anything historically about the property before you sell it. I mean, if there's nothing to it, there's nothing to it, but my first inclination is, well, it's on a very historical property, then you need to look into all the properties on, each piece to make sure it's not something we're throwing away.
That's a good point.
The Marple isn't covenant.
Yeah, it's not in the historic district either. It's not even going to go to Harb.
It's not?
No, it's not in the historic district.
Anyway,
I checked with Charlie. He said it was not, but.
Sidell Zove. I'm curious, the township has had 2 appraisals done on the entirety of the Abolition Hall property. So presumably, the new appraisal would just update the information that you
Yeah,
have.
they had one in 2013, one in 2016.
Right.
We just need an updated
An
number.
update.
Yeah.
Okay. And if I recall correctly, those appraisals noted the pretty poor condition of the property.
Both
And
of them,
even
yes.
recommended demolition. That's my recollection.
They did.
But I also checked the county records, the database regarding taxes, and there is there's a subdivision plan based upon which the county has determined the taxes so that the portion of the property that's not tenant occupied is tax exempt. Only 14 Marple Lane is subject to real estate taxes at this point.
And 1 Germantown Pike, because that was with Whitemarsh Art Center. So once we get the deed, we will be non-exempt on that property.
Right, okay. And according to the tax records, they have valued Marple Lane for tax purposes at $73,850, and using the common level ratio, that places the value of the property at $224,504. So that surprised me.
Yeah. 2016, the appraised value was about $100,000, 100.
So
That's it.
presumably the township's paying taxes on Marple Lane based on this valuation, which seems pretty generous. But anyway, I just thought I'd mention that. And in terms of the history of the property, I mean, certainly Roy knows more than anybody else, but I have looked at old census records, and the house was always occupied by someone who worked for the Corson family, farmer's assistant, whatever you call it. There were servants, there were farmhands, and so in answer to Diane's question, someone who worked for the family lived in the house, according to the census records. Thank you. Thank you.
Further thought about subdividing?
Because of that fact, is there any protection, is there anything that we're deciding with Marple Lane when we are selling it, that they would have to maintain the front portion of the house, the original structure?
We can list it however we want.
Right.
It may just restrict the people that are interested in buying the house or
Yeah,
maintaining the
definitely
house.
would. But I think that's something significant to look into, that we're not allowing someone to buy it and then they decide to knock it down or something,
Because I Googled it too and I couldn't find anything, and now there's that, so it's weird.
It's exactly what they want to do.
Right, I think that's worth looking into. I understand, a lot of older homes, they add on, but sometimes you choose this original stone structure should remain, whether they use it as part of the house or they add on is fine, but that remains intact.
And I'm
Well, that's
looking, I
how we
think
would
that
put it
is
in the bid
in the
if,
historic district.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
so.
Mrs. Butler.
There's one line that the Hartford have reviewed. The owner took the property and restored the building of the house. It's on Maple Lane.
On Marple Lane?
Yeah.
Oh, all right. Yeah, Charlie said it wouldn't go to Harb, but,
Well, I don't know if the reason why it didn't go to Harvard, but the other thing you have with facade that would be affected by performance of Harvard.
So that,
Oh, okay.
I think
You know,
is,
that's the biggest reason why it's tried, that it didn't necessarily need to be. And there, I mean, we're going down to go through the process of eliminating some of the historical districts.
if this is it, 45,
Right, yeah.
let's see, is it an interactive map? If I look at the township historic district map, 45 is listed there. I'm wondering if that is, it looks to be within the domain of the historic district,
okay.
but
Yeah, come on up.
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
So if it's found that it, and it sounds like the front part of the house is probably historical, is it, what is the reason for selling off that parcel? I mean, it makes a nice clean line, but what's the reason for selling it?
There was no need for it by the township?
That's the only reason?
I don't,
Generate revenue for the project?
Right, this is going to fund Abolition Hall.
I mean, you raise a good point. I think we want to look into it. But I still think it's compelling that it could raise money for the project too. So,
It is both.
yes.
I'm leaning towards, my thoughts are to save the part of it that's from the 18-whatevers and try to find out who lived there and maybe incorporate it as an office or something or whatever. My heart is in preservation, but I understand the need for cash. I get that. And it's kind of like off in left field, not near anything else. I get all that. But it's still from Abolition Hall.
Well,
I think you can probably understand better.
Yeah, I do. I mean, that's one of the reasons that the Highlands is significant is because all of the outbuildings were maintained and kept. There's one barn that was sold a lot, like early 1900s, that there was no one preserving the land at the time, so it was sold off and there's tenants living there. Thankfully, there are people that respected the history of the home, but I absolutely am on the same page as you, is that I would want to research more.
I think more research, in my opinion, I think more research should be done on it and then decide. Not to just right here and now say, yeah, get rid of it. I think we got to look into it.
Well, we also have a problem with the grant. The way the grant was given to us by the Carabats, they want to see something happen. And if we go a couple steps back and check into the history in this and start looking at, we could push ourselves back a couple years, and the money that they put up, they might have some issue with. That's why everybody was sort of like,
I don't think it
moving forward.
necessarily has to prevent us from selling it. It's just that we want to preserve it. That there's something in the deed saying you can't knock this
We have
down.
lots of historical homes here
Exactly.
that people live in. It's just that it may have some significance.
It may
that
have
needs
more
be
appeal to a
acknowledged.
buyer as well, to know a little bit more about the history of it. if
And you
at all
might get more money for it.
Right, right. I don't know.
Just a thing, just a thought.
Collectively, information is more like a campus setting. I mean, that's one idea. You could actually have the building being done and doing restoration work, whereas you still have a contract with the Carabats.
Well, I think one thing we have to keep in mind is there's a lot of buildings on this property that require a great deal of capital. Right? We've got Hovenden House, Abolition Hall. Like, there's a lot of, it is the movie The Money Pit when you really step back and look at it. And think Mr. Wilson made a good point. Marple Lane is a residential neighborhood where everyone owns their home. This property has been sitting out there. It was always part of the plan from the inception of this preservation effort for this property to be sold and the proceeds to go towards the rest of this project. My position, I very much appreciate your input. My position remains the same, that I think we should keep moving with selling the property. If there's a historic value and someone goes to pull a permit to demo, then if it's within a historic district, it'll go under review. If there's something of that nature, I think that can be addressed down the road. But the township is incurring costs, every month to maintain these properties. And I think making this project larger is not necessarily the right move for this property. I think the key focus is that Abolition Hall was a source of important history for the Black community, and that history is what we're really looking to promote. And I think that if selling this house helps us to keep these buildings and improve upon them and get them open to the public quicker, then I think we should do that.
Is it possible to kind of do both? Make a recommendation to the board to begin the process to subdivide, and at the same time also pull back or uncover any history about Marple Lane? Because I know when it was going up for the townhouse development, even at that time, it was considered to be subdivided off, I think. So it's been a conversation for a long time, but we might have, can we confirm it's in the historic district? Can we get any information about it to share with the homeowner? And, maybe that might help bring in a higher cost.
Yeah, we could do all the homework, and we could do that. We can, if you want to hold off on getting an appraisal and all that, that's fine.
There's no harm in getting an appraisal, right? To just get that ball rolling. I think
Move the ball. Let's do both at the same time.
I agree. So is everybody in agreement?
Yes.
Who have worked like crazy for Abolition Hall. There's an expert sitting back there. She could probably find out what the history on that property is, can't she?
Well, as I said, the census records do point to who lived there and what their role was on the farmstead.
Right.
And certainly the Wilsons, their archives might have some information as well.
All right, so appraisal for subdivision and confirming it's in the historic and
initiating the process for the subdivision.
Yep.
I just want to say, since I know all these buildings intimately, that is the worst house type property by far. If you keep it, it's just an albatross, so I would definitely get rid of it. It could always have signage and a relationship to the other parts of the property. That can never be taken away. If you can find it, you can create it. If you do want to put any kind of restriction on selling that plot with that building, I would say the back should be torn off, all of it. But the stone
structure in the front,
which is very small, I could certainly see a restriction on saving that just because it is old. It is that style. It is what a tenant would have lived in that time period, which is a very, you're talking very meager living, but that's what it was in those days. In terms of the garage, by the way, I just mentioned, it's not very good either. If somebody wanted to say the garage could be removed, it was built by a tenant that lived there in the 60s, Rudnicki. He was a tenant of Ann's grandmother, and he built it by hand. It's a cement block building with a horrible cement floor and rafters for the roof that are way too small. I mean, on a scale of 1 to 10, it's like a 2. But I mean, the stone is the only value to that.
With all respect to the current person renting it.
And I would just point out that I think as a committee and as the township in general, we exercise a fiduciary obligation to. I don't think burdening the property unnecessarily with historical covenants makes sense. I think if it's in the historic district of Plymouth Township, It will be protected by the review process that is in place for that, but I don't think it behooves us to gratuitously burden the property and demean its value when selling this has always been part of the structure for this transaction, for us to save and invest in and rejuvenate Abolition Hall and Hovenden House.
I just wanted to make one more comment, and that is anyone who's familiar with that area of Germantown Pike knows that two properties that were in terrible condition, one which had been vacant for probably 30 years at 15 East Germantown Pike that backs up onto the Corson Homestead, have been completely renovated, and the buyers, the owners, sunk a huge sum into that one, and 27, which I believe also was part of the Corson Homestead at one point. So that's encouraging that there are entities out there who are willing to sink some big bucks into renovation and restoration. So that's encouraging, and I hope that that has something, plays into the appraisal also.
Thank you. Okay, the public engagement process, which we are currently doing. We are engaging. We had talked about doing a survey a while ago, and we're bringing it back up as a way to gather information from the public in one funnel, so to speak, to have it all kind of come together where people can share their thoughts and ideas, and not have Craig have to read lots of emails at one time. So I just wanted to bring up the survey. Was that added? I don't think so. No. So the one that had gone out, or that we had discussed before, is pretty basic to begin with. It's just talking about, are you familiar with the property? Have you visited the track? What was your experience getting there? Were you walking, using public transportation? Was it safe while you were there? What time of day? While you were there, was there adequate lighting? Did you feel safe? Things of this nature. The primary purpose of your visit, walking, bird watching, the history. Do you have any family connections to the property? Any memorabilia related to the property? It talks about the mission to serve in conjunction with the grant agreement, the Carabots Foundation mission to serve a diverse group of people, including underserved and disadvantaged youth, and asks some questions about that. Are you open to donating or volunteering for this? Any ideas for 503Cs or other communities? What would you like to see happen to it? So I'm running through this really quickly just to give you an idea of what we've been talking about. We can add to this and get some draft survey out pretty quick so that we can push this out really fast.
Are there any questions that you would like us to ask as part of this survey? And just to let all of you know, our view on this is that we're trying to move the football down the field, and we're going to be checking in with you every step of the way. So, like, there was some stuff that was done with the Arts Center being terminated, right? We came here, we shared that. We're here to tell you our next step is to do a survey and to get information from the public on what they want to see happen so that we can better steer what we're trying to do. So to that end, are there any questions that you didn't hear that you would like us to ask?
I have a little question. The survey's going to everybody in the township or what?
Yes.
It's public. You don't even have to be in the township.
It will be public. It will be posted. Yes.
Yep.
Yeah,
It'll be on the website. So if you don't have the email coming to your inbox, then
And even better, if you have a question that you'd like us to ask on the survey, tell us tonight, and we can discuss it, and we would like to include it. We would like the people who show up here meeting after meeting to be vested in this process with us. So if there's a question that you'd like us to ask, and I think that you probably have some.
Oh, I do.
Tell us now, and we will write it down, and we would like to include it.
Well, how important is the history of the thing to you?
If you don't, could you just stand up so that the people in the
Well,
Zoom?
my question would be, to the public, maybe they don't care, okay. But, how important is the very important history of this to people, given the situation the country is in at the moment? I hate to be so crude and put it that way, but this is about politics to me. And, maybe residents of Whitemarsh Township don't give a damn about that. I don't know, and I would like to know. And if they all say no, that's fine. I'll back away.
So how important is honoring the history? Would that be the question?
Right, yeah.
I think that's a valid question to ask, because there's some schools of thought that might say that we want to move forward in a positive way that maybe does not really highlight the history, which can be difficult.
Well, I understand that. That's the struggle. That's the political struggle. That's what the guys that are Erasing History is. It's a popular book these days. Do people care that this kind of reconstruction, potential, threats of violence and everything that went on 150 years ago, right here where we all live today, do people care about that? Maybe not. I don't know.
And go ahead.
Yeah, I don't want to edit questions or suggest ones are less important than the other, but I actually think that we're past that question.
Because, I know, that's why I feel you are too.
Because the Board of Supervisors has acquired the property for the sole purpose of preserving that story, that history. They've brought us up here to try to help them figure out what it is. So
right, but does that amount to just keeping the sign out front?
No, not at all. Not at all.
In other words, you're going to have programs, you're going to have historians, you're going to have films, you're going to talk about this stuff or what? Or are we going to just have STEM classes for Carol?
No, so these are the things that we want to hear from the public.
Well, here I am. That's my concern. You can sort that out whatever you like.
We're no longer with the Art Center, so any STEM, whatever, any STEM.
I thought that was a real good decision you made.
Any STEM programming, that's not going to be the focus.
Okay.
And, the Care Abouts mission is underserved populations, and generally underserved populations of color.
So who is that? From the city? They'd be bussed out here or what?
Again, we're way far away from selecting a partner, and even when we do select a partner, it doesn't mean that's going to be the only thing happening on the property.
Right.
We're here to preserve the history for sure. And
then
the next step for us is,
if we can do that, that's great.
The next step for us is getting a survey out and hearing from you and everyone else. We want to hear what people have to say.
Well, I would like a question, a seriously constructed question. Are you, is this interesting to you? A history that went on 150 years ago, and where you live now, with the issues in the air now, we're in a third reconstruction. I'm convinced of that. And this was the second one we're talking about. The first one, rather.
Would a question be, how do we honor the history, or how do we honor the history in light of where we are today?
Well, to me, that building and its history with the Corsons, and then of course the artisans. I'm not brain fart, I can't think of his name right. There was a lot of courage involved in what they did, and these were edgy times, and we live in edgy times now. People are trying to figure out how to resist. That's the word, the buzzword these days. Nobody knows, and this would be a great place to talk about that stuff. And the beauty of that place is all of that radical abolition stuff was mainstream. It was comfortable. It wasn't edgy, and it didn't, spit on people or anything. It was, Corson and what's the artist's name? I'm sorry. Covenant. Yeah. He was a very mainstream person. He wasn't a radical, but he painted that Frederick Douglass picture for some reason, and I don't know, just interests me. And so thank you for listening. Yeah, appreciate it.
Thank you. Any other questions?
I have a question.
Sure, of course.
I think you'll hear a lot from community members about what they'd like to see at this property, and it'll be a wide range. But I am concerned about the requirements of the grant agreement. And I don't think it's fair to raise expectations among members of the public if, in fact, the terms of the grant agreement won't accommodate certain vision or use of the building. So I understand that the grant agreement is being revised. And so my question is, what requirements will the Karabat's family or foundation place upon the township with regard to the use of the buildings?
So that's a great question. And the beginning of the survey would recap the grant agreement, which still stands. So the requirements in the grant agreement still exist to, let me just read it here, to ensure the long-term sustainability of public use of these spaces while preserving their rich history and fostering recreational and educational programs for diverse groups of people, including underserved and disadvantaged youth, which is a critical part of the Karabat's mission.
So the township, according to the announcement, the township is going to be looking for a new partner to replace the Arts Center. So until we know who that partner is, how can we even begin to discuss in a substantive way the use of the buildings?
I think, though, we need to have some opportunity. There's been enough time that I think people, the residents, yourself, others that can't be here tonight, need to have an opportunity to share their thoughts. So
Absolutely.
I don't want to imply that this is the only survey that's going to go out. I think this is a series of steps that will happen and will be edited and tweaked as we go through the process.
So I would urge you in preparing and distributing the survey to note that the township will be partnering with a new entity, and that there will be requirements or expectations in that new partnership that might shift or shape the use of the buildings. Nonetheless, we want to hear from the residents. So
One of the questions that we ask is, do you have any recommendations on 501c3s that might be a good partner? Because what we're trying to do is get an idea of what's the consensus on what this should be, and then who's a good partner to do that with. And I think the township has done a really good job over the years with comprehensive planning and with major projects in bringing the community together in a series of surveys. And that's sort of, I think, how we look at this.
And
I'm sorry.
I was just going to add on, and I think that we should escape the mindset of the nonprofit that we pick dictates the activities that we provide, because we could partner with Friend School, educational institution, and then they could bring in all the different kinds of nonprofits to have a whole robust array of content. So it really, I said this before, and I mean it. This is an open slate. Like this is, we want ideas from you.
Picking the partnership doesn't have to limit our decision.
Will a new partner replace the Arts Center as the joint owner of the property, or only programmatically?
That's TBD.
I think that's something that has some fluidity to it. I think it is not. I think the impression I get from the Karabat's Foundation is they're amenable to having what seems to be in the best, whatever's following the grant agreement and their impression or their desire for it.
And we'll be talking to them more about it, talking to the family.
Okay.
So.
And then a final comment. When the initial grant agreement and the partnership was announced, and I read through the documents, my reaction was, well, this is an unfunded mandate, that the Karabatz Foundation is requiring certain programs, that certain people be served, certain types of activities occur, but I didn't see anything about funding for the programmatic side of things. And I would hope that the Karabatz Foundation would be willing to help fund programs that meet the requirements of the grant agreement. Thank you.
Sure. Is the Karabat grant public?
Yes.
Can you want to read that?
Yes.
Where would we
You can go
get
to the
that?
township website.
Okay. So you're saying that theoretically, some history-oriented funding source could give you a lot of money, $2 million, say, for instance, like Karabat, and that would solve it. You know, money is what you need to do certain things. So if you want to like emphasize the histories, I'd like. If there's the money for that, then you do it, right?
I mean, obviously, money is a component.
The money is the deal.
Authenticity is another big component.
Well, obviously, authenticity is important, but yeah. So basically, do I understand that the Karabat program will be in the house on the corner, the little house?
I don't think it's defined
We don't even
where.
know yet.
I think that's the whole point of having the conversation and the survey of gathering what people want, having a 503C come in. So getting that specific is difficult right
So
now.
anything that had been decided about where the art center was going to do X, Y, or Z, that's not, no new group is beholden to any plan like that.
But if
That
somebody
being
can come
said-
up with a very generous plan of a couple $1 million for you, you'd be delighted to take it. And
You're volunteering?
no, right away.
I do want to say the Art Center is still a very positive group within the township and
I
the
taught there, I
community.
know,
So they
yeah.
certainly are welcome to have programming there in the future. It's not
That's wonderful.
that they can't at all, by any means. It's like any of the township
Okay,
programs.
thank you.
I don't know who all besides the township that you're going to send this survey out to, but has anybody considered, and maybe you have, sending a survey out to the NAACP or ACLU?
Yes.
Yeah.
You got it. We're on the same path.
Yeah.
And I'll add to that, we have a list of stakeholders and experts that we're starting to gather. If you have names of people that you think should know about this project and be involved in this project, please send it our way.
And that is one of the questions that was here.
Yeah, I think having people in this room, meeting after meeting, is what we're hoping to get from public engagement. And just because the historian you mentioned was not selected for this committee does not mean that he or she cannot have an impact on this project. All they have to do is show up.
Well, they don't show up.
Maybe that's why they weren't asked.
And by the way, I've wandered around there at least 5 or 6 times, so I don't know if I'm trespassing.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I hope it's like, different times, but one thing will probably always come to my attention, they'll give us a Marple meeting. And there are a couple of our colleagues that are want to know that what's happening to Whitemarsh. That's what I've been with the school. It's located up Marple Lane now.
Can you repeat the question? I'm sorry, I can't hear.
Can you come up so everybody can hear you, please?
What I'm referring to is the school located, that's been moved at one location. I think we got suggestions for the school to be relocated.
The one on Spring Mill?
Right.
The one that's on Spring Mill now?
Yeah, I worked with Dave Brown? Dave Miller, to work with him regarding to a set of plans, and we worked on a couple, how we remove it. We had contractors give us an idea of what it will cost to relocate it. And we had a contractor, gave it a price, I forget the number, but it was substantially not too large. But the task to do that and make that move for that small building was pretty phenomenal. A lot of rigging. But I go sitting with my committee, in the Heart Board committee, they're always asking what's happening with the school. And my last recollection, there was conversations, they talked about that it would be the moratorium that until things get a little bit more resolved and a little bit more steady, where you think money's going to be at, where it should be either private funding, public funding, or donations, whatever it would be. But they want to find out exactly where the school's going to be. It will be somewhat, part of the plan that was done by the developer. But now we're just looking at a different concept here. So what I'm getting back to you is that, get some committee members to ask some questions regarding the process of that.
Yep. What Ken is referring to is the one-room schoolhouse that's on Spring Mill Road that was built by Dr. Hiram Corson for his children and other neighborhood children, including some of the Hovenden children attended school there, and it's now, it hasn't moved, but the property was developed and subdivided, so it's now in the front yard of a private new home on Spring Mill Road. And the owners are not maintaining it in any way and would be happy to have it disappear, but are not willing to put a penny into it.
How much to move it?
Well, I got the price, it's somewhere real close to 60,000.
Well, that included some stabilization and renovation, so the moving part is a lot less.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of rigging there, but the roads would be kind of closed, and you would have this rigging material being pushed into the roads and the high tension lines. It's a process. These guys know what they're doing. I've seen it done before.
Well,
something to consider.
Maybe after Marple Lane sells, something we can look at.
There you go.
Need some money.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't want to bring that up, but I figured I might as well ask the question, and at least you have it in the record that we talked about it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sidell.
Any other questions to add to the survey? Okay, well, we're going to just tweak this a little bit and get it out. Okay.
Make a motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned.
All right.
Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you for coming, being a part.